Hello and welcome to Soloing the Stalker. This will be our final episode of Season 3, because we're about to hit level 40. After that we will switch to Season 4, which will be our character in the 40s. And we're working on the Path of the Dark, and while we go, I will talk about that today I had my second Deadlands session of the year since we came back to playing, and everybody showed up, and it was great. We had a lot of fun, and my players almost outsmarted me, and then I was really impressed, and then they didn't. So if you remember right, in the last episode, the last session, we ended with the players saying they wanted to sneak into Mina Devlin's school for gifted youngsters, her witchcraft academy, and it's a school for orphan girls, right? And they wanted to sneak in there and find some dirt on Mina and see what they could discover. But when we started the session, because my best friend is the one who said, for next session, I think the hook should be we're going to go in there, sneak in there, and everybody kind of said yes then. But one of the other guys said, clarify for me, why exactly are we going in there? What are we expecting to find? And so the huckster, my best friend's character, said, well, we'll find evidence of stuff. And he was like, well, evidence of what? I don't know. She's supposed to be working for Chaos. Maybe we'll find evidence of that. And he said, well, you know, we're kind of going to be breaking and entering here. Shouldn't we maybe have a more defined goal? Do we need to talk to law enforcement and get their permission? What's the story? So they talked about it. They debated. They then decided to go. And so then the Blessed, who has the ability to do divination, asked the spirits that he communes with. He found some air spirits, and he asked, you know, well, they were trying to see if the place was trapped. Like, is it trapped if you try to get inside? And they said, well, the air spirit wouldn't know that because it's probably never tried to get inside, so it doesn't know. But it would. Oh man, cool! Another boss. What it did tell them is that, you know, there's black magic going on in there. So they were like, okay, so we know she's bad and she's teaching the students witchcraft, so, you know, okay, let's scope it out. So they decided to go watch it at night, and then something very interesting and fortuitous happened, and I didn't expect this. So they actually, so the wind spirit told them in the divination that they had beings that flew in the air, because it was a wind spirit, that were watching the place. And of course what it meant was the raven familiars of the two teachers who are watching the outside. But I did say, you know, make a common knowledge roll, and the Blessed did, and I said, well, you do realize, you know, from common knowledge, witches do fly around on broomsticks, so it could possibly be talking about that, or it could be talking about something like a bird or an owl or something, which is a bird, or a bat or whatever. And so, because somebody said, well, witches, you know, sometimes bats are associated with witches, as it could be that those things fly. The air elemental probably wouldn't differentiate that stuff because it's just a flying evil thing to it, right? And so they knew that there was possibly something guarding it, so they looked for guards, and they did notice one of them had, the weird scientist has like night vision goggles. They don't call it that, but it's the same kind of thing. And so she could see without penalty, and she saw one of the ravens sitting in the tree. It was really funny because they were at the front, and we've now leveled up. They were at the front of the building. They didn't scout the back of the building. There was another tree and another raven, but they didn't see that the first night they were there. But that night I also had in my notes that that's the night they're going to, of the first of the 5 nights, they're going to deal with the thundering herd of the Los Diablos, the devil bulls. You hear them for 4 nights, and on the 5th night they attack you. But the first 4 nights you hear a scary, distant rumble of, you know, a cattle herd stampeding. And so it was just very lucky that after they got done with all the crap they were doing and went to scout out the school, it was right around midnight. So as they arrived and they saw the raven and everything, and I think it saw them, I can't remember now. They they heard this sound, and they interpret it to be something the raven was doing. Oops, I hit the wrong thing there. Or perhaps that there was a ritual going on in the school, because they know black magic and witches do things at night. They're so close, guys. At 1 in the morning, which I decided is the witching hour, there are several witching hours, midnight, 1 a.m., and because it's the 13th hour, and 3 a.m. are all things I saw listed as the witching hour in the various research I did. So I picked 1 a.m. just arbitrarily. The reason that, well, actually not arbitrarily, the reason I picked 1 a.m. is because the Devil Bulls act at 12:13 at night. And so, if possible, it says in the rules, at 12:13 exactly, you will hear them, and at 12 o'clock you'll hear them, and then at 12:13 exactly they will attack on the 5th night. And so, so the players heard the Devil Bulls, but they correctly surmised that the witches might be doing rituals in the school, but they were there too early. If they had come an hour later, and if they had gone around the back, on the 2nd floor, they would have seen this glowing, eerie, reddish light through the window, which would have been the witches casting a ritual spell, right? They're trying to summon a thing called some kind of slinger, Hell Slinger, which is a 4-armed gunslinger demon. It's from Hell in the High Plains, and it actually is associated with one of the other storylines that I'm using, but I'm not using that monster for that storyline, so I said I'll use it here. I needed a demon for them to summon, and it's pretty cool. So I actually, had one of these AI art programs generate some art. I'm not a huge fan of AI, but Deadlands didn't provide me with the art, so I put the description in there, and it said, "Oh, it's too graphic a description. We can't do that." And then I I backed off a little bit, and it's not the sort of thing I would publicly post, but I figure privately for my group, just to have a little picture on the token, I can't do that art, and I really don't want to take a lot of time trying to find somebody else's art anyway, so I decided to use that. And so I think it's a pretty cool looking demon. It's got 4 arms. It shoots 4 guns every round without a multi-action penalty, which is pretty cool. It's not a wild card, so it's probably not going to seriously challenge them. But the witches are trying to summon it, and I decided if the players teleported between 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. while the summon was going on, it would suck the demon into their teleport, and they would have to fight it. And of course, while they were fighting it, a bunch of noise, and then they get alerted. They alert the witches to their presence. So I had all of these sort of plans, but then as they were doing this stuff, they went invisible. They said, well, let's cast invisibility, and I was like, if they teleport inside invisible, and it's not 1 a.m., they're not going to suck the demon in, and then the little animal heads that I had prepared to, let's just clean this up here. I don't want these guys to aggro down to him if we have to escort. So the animal heads that are hanging on the walls that serve as for alert, I give them a notice roll, but like D6 -4, they're not going to, they're not going to probably see the invisible characters. And so I said, okay, well, they defeated my trap. And they also intuited that there might be a ritual going on, but they intuited it from the wrong information. They thought that the sound of the herd was a ritual. No, it's not. So anyway, they backed off because they weren't sure what was going on. Oh, no, they didn't back off. My best friend's huckster attempted to do far-seeing to look inside the school from a distance, and he got the first crit fail dealing with the devil that we've had. I've been so disappointed that he never crit failed, and he finally did. It didn't do too much. It stunned him, which would be absolutely debilitating in combat, but since they weren't in combat, they just... So then the one player said, okay, well, my character is going to make an executive decision here and is going to say, let's take her back to the hotel and help her. You know, like, well, I'm too concerned. And so they just went back to the hotel and they regrouped and they talked about what to do. And they said, well, Mina Devlin, I made a mistake, guys. I foolishly had Bat Masterson or something mention that Mina had a house outside of town, and I didn't map it or anything because I assumed they'd go into the school because that's what they said they wanted to do. And where is this thing that we missed? Find the last journal pieces. I don't hear it. But yeah, they decided they want to scout for her at her house too. So they went to the house. They did some invisibility. They did some invisible scouting, and they, you know, there was nothing remarkable about the house, and so they kind of gave up on that. And then they smartly, very wisely, did some networking, and the networking role revealed that everybody had seen Mina in the school, and she's often there, and she often stays there and sleeps there and stuff. So they said, okay, let's go back to the school. So this is the second night, and at like 11:30, they went to the school. They saw the Raven in the front. They said, let's go around the back. So they went around the back, and they saw another Raven, and the one character who has an elemental manipulation said, I'm going to try to blow it off the tree. And so they did that, and then it tried to resist, and it crit failed. And so because it crit failed, I said, okay, well, you automatically sort of succeed at that, and he just blew him down the street. So that familiar sort of out of things. But they went back there because they wanted to teleport from there into the parlor. They used far-seeing this time to look inside, and so they didn't go invisible. That was an oversight. I'm sitting there thinking, aren't they going to go invisible here? But they didn't. And so they teleported inside, and I said, so you guys didn't turn invisible when you came inside, did you? And they're like, oh, crap. I'm like, well, you know, and so I described the room they were in. They had seen some of it, so they saw it on the map. I said, there's this directly south of them, and they were right in its line of sight because I had little line of sight cones sketched out on the map. I said, directly across from you above the fireplace is this deer head, and it looks straight at you guys, opens its mouth and shouts, intruders in the school, intruders in the school. They're like, oh crap. And that's where we ended. So I think it was going to be really interesting to see what happens next. Like, they were so close to completely defeating all of the security that I had created and running afoul of none of it if they had just gone in invisibly. And the first night they were invisible, but then they had that spell backfire and they backed off. And they went invisible to Mina's house. But then when they went into the school, they forgot to go invisible. And they didn't think of it or whatever. And yeah, unfortunately for them, they were detected. So now I have to figure out exactly how I'm going to do things. I think what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to deal them into a combat round. I have to figure out how to do this because I think I'm going to deal them into a combat round and possibly deal an unknown character in, which is actually Mina, because her cat familiar is down there, and they materialized in front of an open door right in front of where the cat is sitting. It's pretty far from them, but it's going to run away if it can and try to warn me. Well, I mean, it can communicate with Mina, so she already probably has seen who they are, right? Because the thing shouted, and she probably immediately looked. She's up, right? She's awake because in an hour she's going to be teaching the students the ritual that they're doing. So she's awake, and she's going to immediately. I mean, after all, it makes sense. You hear an alarm downstairs, you'd immediately hop into your familiar's eyesight and see what it sees. And it's looking straight at them, and so it's going to see four, posse members, four people sort of, hombres, whatever you want to call it, loaded for bear, and so she's going to know that they're there. And so I think I'm going to give them one round to do stuff, right? Do whatever you want, set up your spells, what have you, and then the next round, Mina is going to show up with two of her teachers. And then the following round, or maybe 2 rounds later, I have it written in my I think it's 2 rounds later. So they have round 1 free. Mina and the teachers will show up on round 2, and then round 4, the 3 best students in the school will show up to help. And the posse is going to have to decide what to do. Are you going to attack these teenage girls? I don't know. They are witches, and they're pretty loyal to Mina because she got them off the streets, and she's been teaching them witchcraft and sort of filling their heads with, rumors of power and what they can do, and they see how beautiful and powerful and rich Mina is, and they kind of want to be like her. So, yeah, they idolize her. It's going to be really hard to convince them to change sides, because that's one of the things that players are thinking of doing. Now, there may be some younger girls that they could convince, but these 3 are like Mina's prize students. It's like trying to convince Harry, Ron, and Hermione to go against Dumbledore. So, I think they have a pretty tough fight ahead of themselves. And again, my plan for Mina Devlin is the fear level in... And again, they came so close to actually figuring out how to fix this. But the fear level in Dodge City is 4, which is -2 to all fear checks, but also gives witches and black magic users the ability to re-roll any failed spellcasting roll. So that gives a huge advantage to Mina and the witches at fear level 4 and 5. And then fear level 6, which is Deadland, allows the witches to re-roll any spell roll. Even if it's not a failure, they just want a better roll, they can re-roll it. Now you're giving this legendary wild card who has a very powerful artifact from Chaos the ability to re-roll their skill checks, but they need to be in a Deadland. Well, Mina has the power Dread, and Dread allows her to increase the fear level 1 or 2 ranks depending if she gets a success or a raise. So my plan for Mina, who has D12 plus 2 in spellcasting and can re-roll any failed spellcast roll, is to do a multi-action for her. It's -2 to everything, but that means she's just doing D12 on both of her rolls. And she's going to cast 2 spells. One is going to be Dread, and she's going to hope to get a success with a raise, which would turn it into a Deadland and give -4 to all fear checks. And then the next thing she's going to do, if she can, if they're in the right place for her to do it, is going to be to cast Area Effect Fear. They'll all have a -5 or 6, depending on the fear level that she gets, to resist that roll. So there's a good chance that they might either fail the roll or have to spend a lot of resources trying not to get hit by that fear. And then the other witches, of course, since they're in a Deadland, can now also re-roll any spell skill check that they want. So I think it's going to be a tough fight. The other way they almost bypassed everything, though, is at one point when they were going to do the networking, the Blessed has the ability Tale Teller, which in Deadlands you can tell tales of your heroism to the locals, and this can raise the fear level. It makes them less afraid, because it's the fear we have that the Reckoners are preying upon, and the one, what's his name? Was it? No, it wasn't Wolf That Leaps Through Fire. It was Wovaka, the Native American leader of the. He was one of the Sioux leaders. He helped Sandy's group, and one of the things, Sandy is the Blessed, and one of the things he explained to him is that the reason what the Reckoners are trying to do is make people scared because they thrive on fear. They get powerful from fear. He said they sow the mistrust and everything. What I tried to do was paint a lot of the difficulties between the Americans and the Native Americans as the result of the Reckoners sowing dissension, right? That their fear is their weapon. And he explained that to them. And so Sandy got the Tale Teller edge, which reduces the fear level. And so when they were doing the networking, he said, can I use Tale Teller? And I said, well, it's not really the same. Networking is a persuasion roll. Tale Teller is a performance roll. For him anyway, because I think you can choose, but he has high performance because he's a storyteller. And so, because that's part of like one of his things is he tells stories. And so, um, I said, do you want to do you want to do this thing in an attempt to reduce the fear level, or do you want to do the networking to find out where Mina is? And they said, no, 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 we want to do the networking to find out where Mina is. And I thought, oh, they almost got something there, because he's a very good tale teller. With a success, the fear level goes down by 1. With a raise, it goes down by 2. So if he had collected the people of... He would have had to find a way to gather the people of Dodge City, because there are a lot of people in Dodge City, and to tell them, not everybody obviously, but enough people, and tell them the story of how they defeated Helena Robards or something like that. And if he had managed to reduce the fear level to, say, 2, right, he could have hamstrung Mina's ability to produce a Deadland using the Dread power. The best she could have done was get it back to fear level 4, and she can only do it in a local area. She can't do it for the whole city, and she can just turn like her school into fear level 4, just the grounds. It's a 60-foot radius or something. It's not that big. He can reduce the fear level of the entire city, which is actually a really cool edge. So it's really funny because they're really smart. They're really smart players. And hang on, just wanted to double check that I was not actually saying this into our Discord. I didn't think I would be, but I don't want them to hear that. So, ambush, excellent. I love those. Those are cool. So, yeah, they came so close to really foiling some of the best tricks of the bad guys, and then just missed by a hair, which is really cool. It shows you how smart my players are, because they didn't know any of this, but their instincts are so good. Partly because they're very experienced gamers, but also partly because they're just generally smart. I mean, like, my best friend is super smart, like really, really smart. It's really interesting because when we were in school, I don't know what they do in schools anymore, but they had rankings in like junior high and high school. 5 was gifted, 4 was top, 3 was sort of medium or average, 2 was, I don't know what they called it, but sort of below average, and 1 was, the kids who needed real help. And then there was 0, which my sister was. That's the people who cut their classes and don't do anything. She was smart enough to be a gifted, and was in the gifted program in 5th, 6th grade, but then she just decided school wasn't interesting to her anymore and started cutting classes and ended up in the lower levels. And in junior high, my best friend and I were both in the level 4. I stayed, for whatever reason, and this is all based on teacher recommendations, and I don't understand it, because he and I were pretty evenly matched. And if anything, I would say he's slightly smarter than I am. And I don't know, maybe I was a better student because I maybe worked a little harder. But I think just straight up intelligence, if he could outsmart me. Let's put it that way. He can outsmart me in a lot of games. He was better than I was at chess, just by a little bit. I mean, we're very close. But if I had to say who was like just natively smarter, I'd say he has an edge, right? If you want to, I know a lot of people don't like IQ, but if you want to measure it by IQ points, if we took IQ tests, it would not shock me if he had 5 points higher IQ than I do. So I don't think it would be a huge difference, but I think it'd be a little difference, and I think he would have the advantage. So he's super smart, but the other players are really smart too. They are no slouch. The new girl, she's a professor. And that doesn't necessarily mean that doesn't necessarily make you automatically smart, but she's obviously highly educated, and she has very good specific knowledge of like nature and stuff, which sometimes comes into play. It was really interesting when the ravens were out at night. She said, "That's weird. They shouldn't be out at night." I'm like, "Ooh, good catch," because they're familiars, so they're following the orders of a human. They're not doing their natural behavior. So, my players are really smart. They came so close to outsmarting me in several cases. I honestly was very impressed that just by instinct, they figured a lot of this stuff out. It was really cool. But then just at the last second, they backed off of it. He could have said, yeah, I want to do Tale Teller. I want to try to lower. There's a really high fear level in this town. Let me try to lower it. I don't think it occurs to them that Mina could use it as a weapon. Although I did tell them, I think I told them in the previous session, I reminded them because the one guy who's playing the weird scientist had played a young witch who escaped from the school. Now, she wasn't in this session. She's in another town. She's not part of this posse. But because the two of the characters knew her, I said to the one character, my best friend's character, I said, you know from being around Emily that as the fear increases in an area, witches get more powerful. And they said, oh, that's right. So they did know that, but may have forgotten it in between sessions. But yeah, if they realized it, they could have said, wait a minute, this fear level is potentially making Mina more powerful. Let's try and lower the fear level of the town so that her power level is hamstrung. And in fact, if they had, because one of the things they were trying to figure out was how to lure Mina out. And as they were doing this, I was thinking, I thought of it, and then of course they just backed off and said, no, we want to do networking. But it occurred to me that if they had lowered the fear level, especially 2, Mina would certainly have sensed that something had changed in the town. Her power would have decreased. And she might have gone looking for why, and might have heard this story of these people in this saloon who had made everybody heartened by their tales of heroism, and she might have gone looking for them to see what's going on. But they didn't do that. They went with the networking role. So there's so many they almost did certain things. My best friend was looking in through the window with far-seeing, and he saw one of the heads. It wasn't the one that saw them. It was one on the perpendicular wall across from the window, and he saw it. And I said, you see it there? And I told him to make a notice roll, and he failed it. And he had a Benny left, and it was toward the end of the session. And I thought he was going to use it, but he chose not to use it because he wanted to save it in case he needed it for something more important. And I told him at the end of the session, if you had succeeded on that, I was going to tell you that you saw the eyes of the head moving to hint to them that maybe these things aren't just decorative, right? Or why would their eyes be moving? And if he'd seen that, they might have remembered to go invisible. So there were all these little almost things. They almost did this, and they almost did this. They almost completely outwitted the bad guys, but just didn't at the last minute. They forgot to go invisible. Otherwise, they would have actually completely bypassed all the defenses, at least on the way in. Now, whether they would have continued to bypass the defenses as they went through, I don't know. I mean, they have some pretty wild ideas. Like, one of their ideas was to wake up one of the girls and try to get her to be on their side. And I'm like, how's that? The new girl was like, there's no way that's going to work. And they're like, yeah, come on, maybe. She said, you're going to wake up a young girl, like a 10 or 12-year-old girl, in the middle of the night in her bedroom as a total stranger wearing a gun and stuff, and tell her, come with me. Like she's going to be scared. She's going to scream. And she said, didn't you guys ever have siblings who wake you up in the middle of the night to scare you? And the one player was like, yeah, I did. And, yeah, I used to scream too. And she's like, yeah, that's what's going to happen. So I don't know where they got that craziness from. They have really good ideas and they're really smart, but every once in a while they come up with something really off the wall. And there's no way that could work, and yet sometimes they'll think it can. It's really fun watching them think it through. The only frustration I had, there was a lot of navel gazing. There was a lot of, should we do this? No, let's do this. No, let's do this. Let's go back to the original idea. And I kept thinking of Orcs Attack, right? And I kept, as they were doing this, the whole time I'm trying to think, is there a way I could have Orcs attack them? Now, the best way to do that would have been to have the Los Diablos attack, but that's not how it goes. They still have to listen to the Stampede for 5 nights, and you want to do that, because each night that they hear the Stampede, they have to make a fear check. And because right now they're in a fear level of 4, it's at a -2. If they fail, if they don't roll on the failure table. They don't know this yet. But if they fail, they're not rolling on the failure table, the fear table, to see what the result is. Instead, there's an automatic result that they're marked. And all I'm going to tell them is you are now marked, and there will be some circumstances under which, although you normally can spend bennies, you will not be allowed to spend bennies. And I will not tell you what the circumstance is until it arises. The circumstance is they cannot spend bennies to soak wounds until the Devil Bulls show up. Then they can spend them, right? So once the Devil Bulls are in the fight, they can do it. But for now, they've been marked by the Devil Bulls, and they can't use bennies to soak wounds. Basically, they become a little bit unlucky. And so I'm curious if anybody's going to fail that. So far, they all succeeded, and it was really interesting because the new girl, each session I randomly assign one of them an adventure card, and I use a roll table where after I get a result, it locks the results so that it goes round robin. Everybody gets one before somebody gets the second one. They've all gotten multiple ones now. They like the adventure cards. In this session, the adventure card was drawn by that player, and the adventure card was Ace. You can exchange any roll you make for an automatic success with a raise, any trait roll. And so she failed the fear check. She re-rolled with a Benny and failed it again. And I don't know if she re-rolled a third time and failed it, but I said to her, you can use your adventure card to automatically succeed at this with a raise. And she was like, well, I was kind of saving it for when we might need it if we get into combat or something. And I said, well, that's fine. That's up to you. You can fail the roll. And I thought she was going to get marked. Then she said, you know what? No, I'll use it now. And so she succeeded. So all of them succeeded. And so nobody's marked yet. They don't know what that phenomenon was. So far, they still think it was Mina. Now, so the other little bit that's interesting is they're in Mina's house. Oh, I didn't see this guy. They're in Mina's house. It's 11:30ish at night. So that means that in half an hour-ish, they're going to hear the stampede again. So that's probably going to be after the fight with Mina. I assume they're going to win. They'll beat her. Maybe they're going to be questioning her. Maybe she's dead. Maybe they're going to be talking about Masterson, whoever, and then they're going to hear it again. I'm really hoping at some point they hear it when other people besides them are around, because they're the only ones who can hear the bulls. Nobody else. They're also the only ones who can injure the bulls. Nobody else. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out, because if they've already defeated Mina and maybe she's dead, and they hear this again, they're going to be like, well, what was that? And then if the next night they're on the train going someplace else and they hear it again, well, wait a minute, what was that? The hard thing about the Devil Bulls is I'm not sure where they're going to be when the fifth night comes and the bulls attack. So it's been really interesting, guys, and I've actually had a blast thinking about, like, it's really what I love about my players is because they're smart and because they do this kind of thing where they actually outwit me without even knowing what the trap is. They just figure a way around it, which is super impressive. I like the time in between sessions is often really fun because I'm now okay, how am I going to prep this to make it challenging for them this time? So I give them challenges, but they, by being really good players, give me challenges. And I realize I forgot to level up. So we're going to end this episode, but let's level up. We're going to go Talos. And then I'll talk to the contact. So level 40, we get some new enhancement slots. I haven't done as much thinking about what slots I'm going to put where as I normally do before leveling up. So let's talk to Luminary. Train up to a new level of power. Train up to the next level. So we get 3 slots. What do we want to upgrade? I could do focused accuracy again, but I feel like the 2 endurance on it is okay right now. We could finish Shadow. Oh, no. Midnight Grass, we definitely want one there. You could put a recharge on Overload. Um, hmm. I think we're going to finish Midnight Grasp. And we got one more slot, huh? That's enough of the offense. Let's see. And should we do defense? Let's put another slot on accuracy. For now, I'm going to put a 2-hit buff on it. But I'm going to put a 2-hit buff on it, but I don't know if I'm going to keep that or put an extra endurance reducer in it. We have tons of endurance reducers. I don't know if we have any 2-hit buffs. I don't remember getting any up to this point. We got a heal. Level 45. We can't use that yet. We need Ancient Bone. I'm pretty sure we've got that. Yeah. So we do need another heal, right? We need one right there. So let's grab that one. And we'll slot that in there. And then we need 2 damages, which I think we already have. Yep, 1, 2. Boom, boom. We now do almost 300 damage with that bad boy. Very nice. And that I did want a 2-hit buff, but I don't think there are any in there. And I don't think I've got a... Oh, I do. It's level 45, unfortunately. No, we have to buy it. You know what? I normally like to just get them when they drop, but let's go ahead and grab it. And we'll get Improvised Cybernetic, which I think is over here. Yep. And then we'll just go ahead and do that one, since it was just one. Level 40. Great. And that is going to go on here. Wait, we can't put that on there? I thought we could put it. Yeah, enhanced to hit buffs. Okay. I don't know what happened there. Wasn't it grayed out? I don't know, but we can now include our base, increase our base to hit by 6% instead of 5%, so it's a little bit better. So yeah, I think we're going pretty well. We have some SOs on things, but mostly IOs. Can we replace anything? Do we have any reach? We have recharges that we can use now, right? So we can start ripping these out. Do we want? Let's do this one. That one. And let's do that one. Because this is quantitatively better, right? It's 5% better reduction. So that moves Assassin's Eclipse down to a recharge time of 10.82 seconds. Oh, there's another recharge. So we can remove that too. So we're almost entirely IOs now, guys. We're still shy 1 damage. But otherwise, we're doing pretty well. I'm actually really happy with this character. I'm thrilled with the way she's turned out. I think she's doing a great job. Now, you may have noticed in the last mission, we were doing a lot of +1s instead of +2s. That's because the mission is, the level is capped for this story arc. So now we have to, oh, we have to recover the seed. That's going to be tough. That's going to be a tough mission. I don't know if we're going to be able to solo that one. The Shadow Seed is really hard. But we'll try. And we have our extra row of inspirations. That's pretty good. That's pretty cool. Let's come on over here. We're going to fight the Shadow Seed, and let's grab some of our big guns. Right? And maybe one more of those. This way we have a little bit better inspirations. We will go after this guy in the next episode. Of course, he probably will only be +1 to us, so it might not be as bad. But Shadow Sea is pretty tough. Alright guys, I hope you have enjoyed. I hope everybody's having a great new year. We're now about a month into it at the time of this recording. And I hope you guys have enjoyed the episode. And again, please always feel free to leave comments. I love reading them and I like to respond to them. And until next time, I am Scarperlock, and this has been City of Heroes.